will be eligible for liver transplants on the NHS for the first time. The pilot scheme announced by the NHS Blood and Transplant Service will only be available to 18 to 40-year-olds who've been diagnosed with liver disease for the first time. Dave Caulfield damaged his liver by drinking too much, and he had a liver transplant 10 years ago. He spoke to 5 Live earlier.
I was very, very lucky in that the National Health gave me a chance. When I was diagnosed with chronic cirrhosis, I stopped drinking right away, and that's the best thing I ever did. You do feel very, very foolish when you actually go to the National Health and have to admit that you've been drinking too much. I was told that I had chronic cirrhosis and that if I hadn't had a transplant within 12 months, I would have died. I was very lucky that the National Health, and they did take a chance, because I think with any drugs-related inducement, they do take a chance with you. But again, a clinical need, and that particular one, I had stopped drinking for 6 months. I think people aren't aware that before you're even considered for a transplant, you have not got to have a drink of alcohol within at least 6 months, and a very, very good chance of you not starting again.
Well, let's talk about this a bit more, shall we? Maxine Cowlin's here, who suffers from a rare liver-related disease called PSC. She's only 24 and has been waiting for a liver transplant for 9 months now. Also here, Professor Sir Ian Gilmore, who's a liver specialist and advises the Royal College of Physicians on alcohol-related issues. And Bertie Lee is the chairman of NCPOD. It's a charity which works to improve patient care. He's also a medical ethics lawyer. Hello, evening to all of you.
Evening.
Hello. Maxine, let me start with you, please. Tell me a little bit about your condition, please.
Basically, I suffer with a condition called primary sclerosing cholangitis, like you said, PSC for short. I was diagnosed when I was 16. There's no known cure, or there's no known reason why people get this disease. It's thought that it's an autoimmune disease. Basically, it's really unpredictable. It can progress very slowly, it can progress very fast. Some people can live with it for their whole lives and barely have any symptoms, and some people, suffer quite badly with symptoms. For me, for the first 6-7 years of being diagnosed, I was fairly asymptomatic, didn't have a lot of trouble with it. Went to university, studied dance, just got on with my life. And then last year it took a turn for the worse, and I was in hospital for quite a lot of the first part of the year. And basically my disease progressed quite significantly, and now it's left me needing a transplant. It's the only, the only hope I've got of getting better.
So how does it make you feel, Maxine, when you said it impacts on your life? In what way?
The main symptoms I get are extreme fatigue. It's really hard for me to get out of bed most days. It varies. It's very different every day. But for the last sort of year, it's been very difficult for me to get up and go, and I've had to quit work. I'm no longer able to study dance in the way I did, or take part in that at all. Also, other symptoms include itching, which sounds very bizarre, but it's kind of uncontrollable all over your body. You can't stop scratching yourself. Drives people mad. Drives me mad. It can cause a lot of pain in the abdomen. Jaundice.
So I mean, these are
lots of symptoms.
So really, it does affect your life very, very drastically. You've been waiting 9 months for a transplant now. How do you feel about this news today, that someone who's been drinking to excess could be on that list alongside you?
I mean, at first, you're a bit frustrated about it, but I don't think it's easy. It's not black and white. It's a lot of things to consider. It's a real sensitive subject, and I think if you look at it from first hand, you think, these people have put themselves in this position, so why should they get the same treatment as somebody who hasn't put themselves in this position? And with diseases like PSC and PBC and autoimmune hepatitis, people haven't asked to be in this position, and they're needing transplants. And the fact that people who have put themselves in the position could get transplants ahead of us, at first you're a bit frustrated about that, but I mean, it's not as simple as that. I mean, alcohol is such a big part of our society and our culture these days. It's so easily available. People know the damage that alcohol can do, but people don't often realise how easy it is to get yourself, to the stage where it is damaging your health considerably. And but before people know it, it's too late by the time that they have any of the symptoms. So.
Let's bring in Professor Sir Ian Gilmore here, because Maxine makes a very good point there, Professor. And I don't know if you heard your call this morning on 5 Live, but very, very passionate calls about this this morning. And the point is, I suppose it depends on your view of alcoholism, does it not, as to whether or not you feel people are deserving of a liver if they have drunk to excess?
I mean, clearly it's a very difficult issue, but so many of the conditions that we see in the health service have an element of what people have been doing. We've always been prepared to operate on patients with lung cancer from smoking, or we look after patients with chronic bronchitis. So this isn't an ethical change at all. What's happened is in the past, patients with alcoholic cirrhosis have had transplants, but they've had to wait some months to make sure that they really need one, and there's been a window of opportunity where you could wait, but now results from various studies have shown that it's also possible to treat the very sickest patients who present often for the first time, often very young, we know will die within a matter of weeks if they don't have a transplant. And so that's the change in policy, saying let's look at these ones that we wouldn't transplant in the past because we thought they wouldn't survive the operation. We now have evidence they will survive. And it's very similar to patients, often young people who come in having taken an impulsive overdose of paracetamol. Their liver packs up within days. We know they will die within a matter of days if they don't get a transplant. And we've been treating those people, even though in a sense it's been self-induced, but again, often with very complex circumstances surrounding it.
Bertie Lee, you work with a charity to help improve patient care. You're a medical ethics lawyer. Ethically, should somebody who has willfully, some may say, damaged their liver through excessive drinking be on the same list as somebody who's had no choice in their liver damage?
Well, as Sir Ian says, a lot of diseases that people bring to the NHS are self-inflicted. It would be a great pity if we were to say that, for example, people who have liver disease specifically, some of them will have hepatitis C or hepatitis B as a result of having been drug addicts. Others will have non-alcoholic hepatitis due to obesity. People can be critical of people's lifestyles and say that they're only to blame for their own diseases. But it doesn't really work in justice as a basis for choosing who you treat. The doctor who is consulted by a patient cannot become a moralizing judge and looking at the patient and say, I will not treat you because I disapprove of the way in which you have lived your life in the past. Are
you concerned, though, that some people listening might think, well, I'm not going to put my liver down as a donation because an alcoholic might get it and I don't want an alcoholic to get it? Because that's some of the voices I heard today.
Well, I understand that view, but I don't suppose that they would want... There are two objections to it. One is that the disease is self-induced, and as I've said, and as Sir Ian said, there are so many diseases that are the consequence of lifestyle choices that I think people just have to accept that that is what is going to happen, and these people need their help when they're choosing to make the supremely altruistic decision to donate an organ. The other objection is that it's futile, that the prognosis for these people is very bad and that they're going to go back to drinking again. And the research suggests that, in fact, if you are selective with patients, this doesn't happen. And that, for example, the prognosis, the 5-year survival rates of people who get a transplant for alcohol are better than if they have hepatitis C, for example.
Okay.
In America, they have a 6-month abstinence rule before they will consider you for a transplant. And they did a study looking at people who were so desperately ill, the category that Sir Ian was describing, that they're not going to survive 6 months. And they were very careful about who the people they selected.
Okay.
They were people who contracted not to drink and so on,
right.
and had good support systems. And they found that the results of that were very favourable.
OK, we have to leave it there. But thank you, all of you, actually, very much. Bertie Lee, Professor Sir Ian Gilmore, and also Maxine Cowlin. It's 6:36.
On digital, on